Welcome to PNN KEXU, Po People's Revolutionary Radio on 96.1 FM on the dial in Oakland and streaming live online at www.pornmagazine.org/radio. This is Ifalayo. I was unhoused on Wood Street for many years and now one of Homefulness's leaders and land liberation at Homefulness East Oakland. In the studio with formerly House's poet and poverty scholar, my sister Tiny.
Yeah, that's PNN, not CNN, people. Poor People's Revolutionary Radio. Because we evicted, swept, and kicked the settler towns like these. Don't give an ish.
So at Poor News Network, we have been focusing on the violent criminalization of houseless communities across Turtle Island. Locally, this means the increase of sweeps, shelter, safe parking lots, and tiny home closures, and legislations like Oakland City Council member Ken Houston's encampment abatement policy. On today's show, we hear from elder warriors on the planned closure of some of the big nonprofits who have received millions of dollars in government funding to be service providers of all of the so-called solutions to homelessness. As well, we will look nationally with the planned opening of a giant concentration camp for houseless communities in so-called Utah. All of this and more, but first, let's hear from our ruthless radio reporters here in Wichin, reporting on the recent planned sweep of Lake Merritt.
Occupied streets of so-called Oakland.
I've been here for like the last 2-3 years.
And how'd you become houseless?
Uh, well, I got out of prison, and when I got out of prison, I went through some personal changes. You know, not to get too specific, but I'll kind of bounce back and forth. I'm to be quite honest, I'm more of a person who's not on the streets, but in the streets a little bit.
Have you been dealing with some of this violent sweeps they're doing in Oakland?
Oh yeah, I witnessed all that. I witnessed the sweeps. I witnessed and the tactics that they use. Like even they came out here, this spot, right? Like I don't stay right here, but I know the people out here, and so I'll come and tap in. But they put their notices, the legal notices that they got to put for when they're gonna come and do their sweeps. They put them out here, but they put them out here in Vietnamese and another language. You feel me? Type stuff, and they do it like in a short, and they don't do it by the actual time limits. And then they got tactics. You know, they'll go and recruit highway patrol for something that, you know what I'm saying, where highway patrol usually doesn't go, or where the PD don't really got jurisdiction. They'll go out the way and find the people who really ain't tripping on it, but get them to shake the tree, and then get the shit to fall down the line, so to speak.
Yeah. And so it's a setup for the ghetto.
Well, I mean, it's already a setup. If you think about what they did when they made homelessness become illegal, you got to think about it like this. Once homelessness became illegal, like me, I get out of prison and I don't got no place to live. I guess I've already violated my parole because I've already broken the law.
That part. And
So-
they've got these rents so high, who can afford to get inside?
Well, and nonetheless, not just the rent is it's astronomical, but on top of that, they got 1 million empty buildings out here, right? 1 million empty, and whether they businesses or whether they residential, but nonetheless, you got lots of space. And if you wanted people to be housed or to be off of the streets, you already got all the solutions. You got more than enough place.
That part. Any last words, fam?
Yeah. The last thing I was gonna say is, it's pretty much all a setup, and there's been a lot of corruption, and not to throw shade or be no dry snitch, nothing like that. I just know that some of these resources that they've been funneling for the homeless or for AB 109 or whatever to these intermediaries, it's not making it there. And when you give people these tiny homes, which was a joke, right? Like which was a joke. It was like Marcel and Pelican Bay was better than the tiny home shacks in some of these places. Like you're setting the people up for failure. But what they should have done was they should have had the people build their own. Therefore, they could have learned a trade and built their own, and there would have been no way. And if they didn't get housed, that would be on that individual. If you didn't, and another thing I was gonna say, there's a whole lot I could say. I don't want to go too much,
It's okay.
but
You a poverty scholar, fam. That's what's up.
Thank
And
you.
that's what you just described is what we're doing at Homefulness. Thank you, brother.
Yep, yep.
Appreciate you.
Mhm.
Oh, Mateo.
Yeah, this is PNN, not CNN, folks. That was one of our Ruthless Radio reporters, a badass poverty scholar, currently dealing with this houseless struggle, live and direct from our beautiful Wood Street families outreach. Because, we as poor and houseless people know what we need. We have solutions. And this settler colonial governments need to move out the way, actually. But that brings us into today's conversation. As myself and DeFilio experienced, this politrickster, Ken Houston, has put in yet another settler colonial lie on top of the already existent ones that make it illegal for us to be houseless on these streets. If people weren't able to come to a 9:30 meeting, which is ridiculous because people have to work, they have to survive. That's understandable. But quiet as kept, the politricksters voted in yet another law that makes it illegal to be houseless in these occupied streets. That said, the encampment abatement policy has already come down, and their first target was Lake Merritt. Their shout out, of course, again to poverty scholars who were holding out by a thread, who were living out in Lake Merritt. But the reality is they have already started these sweeps. They're already doing the sweeps.
They've been doing these sweeps for a while, like even before this policy came about, they were already just like showing up and, sweeping people, not offering any type of solutions. And so just want to say all my folks that are still, experiencing homelessness out there, now's the time to keep your head on a swivel and really help and support each other and stay ready out there, because now they can just show up and take everything you own without any notification. And that's one of the things they were saying is that, they might put up notices for 20 RVs and come back a couple of days later and there's only 5 left. Well, of course, people got out the way, but them passing this policy that we're basically saying we don't want to notify people because we just want to do a sneak attack. So make sure that you stay ready and that you share the information with your people so that you know what's going on. And also, we're going to be providing a lot of our resources on May 29th at the old Greyhound station from 1 to 4 at our resource fair. So stay tuned for more information about that.
Yeah, which I just want to second what my sister said, because the piece about it that's so violent and sick is not only are they violating our human rights and claiming that we're nothing more than trash, thanks to Grants Pass versus Johnson, which now it puts in law that our human bodies are no longer considered human under the 8th Amendment of the Constitution. They've been doing that, right? But now they're closing all their fake solutions. And then they're closing all the service providers that provide them, which is why we need to bring in Sister Omawali. Omawali, come on in. So it's been an ish show out here at Poor News Network this morning. We are all struggling to keep on keeping on by any means necessary. So I just want to thank listeners and viewers who are with us right now, because us poor people creating media, that's in and of itself an act of revolution, resistance, and struggle. Omawali,
Good morning.
can you speak on specifically one of the largest nonprofiteers in occupied Uchun, so-called Oakland as the settlers call it, who is now on May 31st planning to close their doors take that one little bit of crumb snatch away from us poor folks. Go ahead.
It's terrible. Thank you very much, Sister Tiny and listeners. What has happened is that there has been a continuous downgrade of Bay Area Community Services BACs. What they have done is changed the whole format. They got rid of both hotels, the Henry Robinson on 16th and Clay, and the Holland, which was on West Grand and Martin Luther King. That was about 300 people they just tossed out into the street. We have no idea where they went, what happened to them, what resources were made available for them. Nothing. This past last week, we were notified that the police were going to sweep the encampments over at Lake Merritt. And I think, Sister Ifatayo was talking about that. I am just mortified at what is going on right now. And I think it has to do with the fact that they really have to spend their Measure W money, $650 million plus, which folks voted in 2020. And that money just kind of sat there and grew and grew and grew. And so this year, 25-26, they decided, we got to do something with this money because people wanted to see housing for the homeless. But they didn't do what you normally do to house homeless, which is take them somewhere where it's vacant, rent it, and then let them live in there and give them a key. They didn't do that. They put that money into administration, hierarchies. They put it into more organizational little pockets here, there, and everywhere. And then by the time it gets to the people who are on the street, it comes out in the form of coffee and hot rolls. That's it. Okay. Maybe a towel.
Wow.
And I'm serious.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
The thing that's happened is that they posted on the wall of the Oakland townhouse, which is the one at 629 Oakland Avenue. And I guess they posted the same stuff at Berkeley, 2801A and Telegraph, and then the other one at Headco out in Hayward. The notice that there would no longer be any financial supports for housing, which those were their flex funds, which meant that if you showed up and you didn't have enough money to pay your rent that month or last month, they could hit that and you would not get thrown out. Okay. The issue is that people have been voting in every 2 years since 2016, either Alameda County, Oakland, or Berkeley, or other cities around like San Leandro and so forth, measures that were designed to quote unquote house the homeless. And every one of those measures, if you go back and look at the voter registration books, it all says the same thing. Housing for the homeless, housing for the homeless, housing for the homeless. They don't use it for housing for the homeless. They invest in their infrastructure as a bureaucracy. So rather than replacing the state vouchers for hotels that we used to have, which got used up in a, half a second, they use that money to invest in contractors, more subcontractors who are going to go around and take the data up.
Consultants.
And they were going to produce all this data studying the homeless. We don't need to study the homeless. We need to remove homelessness as a condition. And that's not what the government does. And every time we go to a Board of Supervisors meeting or Oakland City Council meeting or Berkeley City Council meeting or, even outside the county, Richmond and Contra Costa, same old game. We end up looking at infrastructure and we end up looking at, we have another need that's more critical than getting folks housed. And the people of the county voted in housing for the homeless because they wanted people not to be on their block.
That part. And I have to, first of all, Omawali, thank you always for being a warrior of truth, and for a poverty scholar yourself as well. I want to just lift up the people. They have to go through 3,000 hoops to get the measly crumbs of housing that they do. dole out to us. The hoops creators and the hoop navigators are now saying, sorry, no more room at the inn.
No
We're
more.
closed. See you later. That is so much violence because these giant non-profiteers like Bax, and you've heard me say this before, yes, I do call them non-profiteers, have taken in, as Sister Omawali said, literally thousands up to millions with an M dollars to so-called navigate our homelessness. We're running out of time, Omawali, because we're late today. Can you give us any last words on what's
Yes.
next?
First of all, we want to go back to Measure M, which was 2016. That was an Alameda County parcel tax bond measure, whatever you want to call it. Then we want to look at Measure W, which was in 2020, which is the one people are struggling over right now. And I want to raise the name of Jonathan Russell, who is the director of Measure M. And I have not seen it yet. Here is a house mounted by the key. I haven't seen that. What he has done is what are you planning? There's nothing to plan. Make up some silly vultures, pay the hotels, pay these new high rises that have less than 65% housing completion. I mean, they got all these empty spaces everywhere. What I want people to do is have you and your neighbors do a writing campaign to the county of Alameda, city of Oakland, city of Berkeley. City of Berkeley, again, does not have not nary one dime invested in housing for homeless people with children under the age of 18. That is criminal negligence.
Oh,
I don't care how you spell it.
thank you.
So anyway, that's what I want. Writing campaigns, email, phone calling.
All right.
All that stuff is on the web. You can look it up. It's free. And if you can't go to a meeting, at least send one delegate from your community who says, I'm from community, blah, blah, blah. I'm here representing X number of people. We want this stuff stopped. We want vouchers out there. We want to get people cleaned up, etc. That's what you do.
Ashe, thank you, Omawali, and thank you for being a warrior of truth. I do want to let folks know that it's tentative right now, but our plan is to actually do an action on these non-profiteers on May 26th at 10:30 in front. It's going to be a Cross Bay action in front of Oakland City Hall. And then we're going to be going over to Frisco. Shout out to all of our occupied Yelamu relatives right now, because they just closed over 1,200 emergency shelter beds. What they did, and this is under the wealth hoarding mayor over there, who is, has never missed a meal, as my mama would say, has no poverty scholarship and doesn't really care about our lives, and is violently sweeping people every day. We've witnessed it. But as we try to lift up homefulness in Yelamu, they've closed 1,200 beds, and what they did is bring in these drug treatment centers. That's so great, and I believe in those. But why is it one or the other? Because there's a lot of our relatives, specifically mamas and children, like myself and my mama, like myself and my son. And if we had not had an emergency shelter bed, we would have ended up staying on that street corner, in that doorway. And that is not a place for families to be. None of these systems are places for families to be. But at least we have a roof, we have a bed, we have a pillow. So anyway, stay tuned. May 26th is the tentative date. We appreciate you, listeners and viewers, and you heard the marching orders from Sister Omawali. And now back to you, Ifalayo. So no, this is the beginning. There you go.
Oh, well, there we are.
Love Sister Ifalayo for doing the real
listeners
work.
and viewers. Us poverty scholars are actually coming to the East Coast, Turtle Island, to share the somatic medicine of the new no-budget movie, Crushing Wheelchairs, which tells the stories of 6 ancestors of the violence of sweeps, police terror, and homelessness created by us fellow houseless and formerly houseless cultural workers and survivors.
Yeah, so listen, family, if you have any friends or relatives, comrades, or community back East Turtle Island, please come. Please tell them about this. We're going to be there kicking it with our family from Touch the Sky in Northampton, that's Western Massachusetts. We're going to be in Boston at the Somerville Theater. Shout out to Selk and the warriors from that liberation, those liberation lawyers. We're going to be also going to Philly. Shout out to Poor People's Army. Hey! We're going to be kicking it with our fellow poverty scholars out there. We're going to be in DC, which is kind of crazy. We're going to be in Baltimore, and we're going to be in NYC at the Maisels Theater. So please, family, please join us. Please let folks know. I know that, this is going to Cali audiences, but there's a lot of folks back there. And shout out to Rent Refusers, to Art Against Gentrification. There's a lot of badass mutual aid workers who are from the streets, for the streets, in occupied Lenape territory. Please support them. For us, this is never about us or me. It's about us lifting the revolution of we.
Ashe. So that's all for this edition of Poor People's Radio. To get our complete podcast, go to Poor Magazine on SoundCloud or poormagazine.org, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, at Poor Magazine, or at Poverty Scholar. That's POVERTYSKOLA, or on Poor News Network on YouTube.
All power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
All right. Thank you, family.